Next, we're going to talk about multiplication of decimal numbers.
So for those, we need to be able to show in words and how in steps. So the question we're doing is 2.18 times 1.7. We want to show how in words, and on your homework you will need to explain that and how in steps. So when we multiply something like this, do we need to line up the decimal points? It's important. When do we need to line up the decimal point? Only when you do what kind of operations? And subtraction. So multiplication, you don't have to line up the decimal. But don't get rid of them, okay? Just leave them there. So I'm gonna say in words we can ignore, but don't eliminate them, okay? Ignore decimal and multiply numbers as if they were whole numbers. Then we want to count number of decimal places from the question and place decimal point to the answer. On your homework, you have two, right? For the how in words, you just need to write this one time. You don't have to write twice. It's okay. It's too much writing. As long as you write one time, I know you know it. And we're gonna multiply them together. How? First, we're gonna multiply 8 times 7 is 56. Thank you. So I'm gonna say 5 here and 6 here. Is it okay? Just show me carrying. It doesn't need to be exactly like what I'm doing. 7 times 1 is 7. Adding a 5, we have 12. 12. What am I doing? All right. So now 7 times 2 is 14. Need to add my 1 is 15 like that. Are we okay? All right. So now we will multiply. 1 times 8 is, okay, where do I put it? Under this place value 2 here, right? So it's 8 here, and what do I put here? A 0. Okay, 1 times 1 is 1, and 1 times 2 is 2. What do I do with these two numbers? You add them together. So now we have 6 and 10. So somehow you show me you're like carrying somewhere. 7 and 3. Final answer? No, because we are multiplying decimal, right? So we have how many decimal places here? You have 1, 2, and then 3 after the decimal point, right? So it's going to be 1, 2, 3 here, right? Decimal point. Well, this is like a lot going on here. I would prefer you write the answer one more time. It's 3.706, okay? Are we okay with how in words, which you have to show on the homework, and how in steps? We're going to do why in words and why in steps. Why in words and why in steps? So I want you to write the question first. Anybody remember from last semester? Has 2.18 times 1.7. First we change them to what? Fractions. You can say like this is brand new information. Okay, how do I change them to be fractions? 2 and 18. 100 because two decimal places, right? Is in the hundredth place also. Times 1 and 710 because one decimal place means 10. And this is in the 10th place, right? So after we change it to fraction, then we change them to improper fractions. How do we change them to improper fractions? Multiply the denominator to the whole number and add the numerator. So now we have 218 over 100 times 17 over 10. Like some people like to get the same denominator. For this particular one, you don't really have to. I mean, if you want to, that's fine. What do I do next? Top will multiply the top. Bottom will times bottom. So we're going to have 218 times 17 on top, 100 times 10. If you multiply straight across, then what do we have on top? So it's going to be 3706 over 100 times 10 is going to be 1,000 because it's 3 zeros, right? Are we okay? When we get to this point, what do we need to do? So I'm going to write this one more time because I went out of space. Sorry about that. They pretty much divide, so we need to get the bottom part equal to 1. So get the denominator equal to 1. You can divide both top and bottom by 1,000, or you can just move the decimal places. Either way would be fine. If I move decimal places 1, 2, 3, make sure you tell me which direction you're moving. Do the same thing on top, right? 1, 2, 3. So I am going to get 3.706 over 1, which just mean what? 3.706. On your homework and on the test, I can ask you to write y inwards and y in steps. Again, for the wording, you just need to write one time. That's okay. You don't have to do it for every single part. And then you're going to show me the steps for the 2 questions. Question for this. This is an example for multiplication. We're going to do one for divisions. Division of decimal number. We are going to do 10.125 divided by 1.25. Again, we are going to need to know how in words and how in steps. So normally, what do we do if it's a division problem? We have a house. Who go in the house? 10.125, we call that what? This is the dividends of your division, okay? And then what go outside? The divisor, which is 1.25. Whole number who need to be a whole number. What's the term? The divisor. Okay, all right. Divisor need to be a whole number. The dividend does not need to be a whole number. So 1, 2 places, right? You're going to do the same for your dividend. Put an arrow there so I know which direction you're moving. I'm going to write that one more time. Now it become what? 1012.5 divided by 125. Okay, so far we okay? So let's write down what we did there. We're going to move decimal point for both the dividend. I do not know why somebody keep misspelling dividend last semester. So D-I-V-I-D-E-N-D. And they misspell it kind of the same way too. So make sure you know how to spell dividends and divisor. So that, which number need to be whole number again? The divisor become a whole number. Then you divide, right? 125 go into this number how many times? I mean, it cannot go into 1, it cannot go into 10, it cannot go into 101, so I have to keep moving to become a bigger number compared to the divisor, right? So 1012, 125 go in how many times? Anybody know? 7 is close. Okay, what is 8? Let's try 8. 1,000, okay. That's very close. Okay, what do I do with that? You subtract these 2 numbers and you get 2 here and what? Just 5? You're missing something. Okay, 1 also need to go down, okay? And then you bring down the 1 because like 12 is not going to be big enough to divide by 125. I put 125 here, meaning I need a 1, okay? This is minus 125. We stop when it's 0, right? Is 81 my answer? No, because I need to move the decimal point up here, right? So 8.1 is my answer. Okay, over here we say divide. After we divide, you need to carry the decimal points to your answer, right? Carry decimal point up to the answer. Okay. This is how it works and the how in step, and seems like people have a hard time dividing by hand. I think we're depending on the calculator quite a bit, so you may have to practice the division a little bit. This is the how part, and then we're going to move on to the y part. We're going to do y in words and y in steps. Again, on the homework, just need to do the wording one time for both of the questions. So I'm going to write down the question first. The question was 10.125 divided by 1.25. First step, I need to change them to fractions. Changing them to fractions, the first number will be what? 10 and 125 over 1000 divided by 1 and 2500, because this is in the hundreds place and two decimal places mean 20 in the denominator. Thousands place, three decimal places mean 30 in the denominator. After they are fractions, I need to write them as improper fraction. Change to improper fractions. So you have to say improper fractions, okay? Last time a lot of people say improper and then stop there. Okay, how do I change them into improper fractions? We can multiply the denominator to the whole number and add the numerator. Show the steps. The first fractions will be 1000 times 10 at that 10,125 over 1000 divided by 125 over 100. Everybody okay? And after that, we are going to, there's two different ways to do this. Like you can just go ahead and divide straight across and get the denominator to become 1, and some people like to get them to have the same denominator. Either way. I'm going to follow what we did with the multiplication, maybe less confusing for people who were not with us last semester. So I'm going to do top divided by top, bottom divided by bottom, which means 10,125 divided by 125, 1000 divided by 100. Okay, so here we have this part, so the top divided by top, the bottom divided by bottom. So when we get to this point, we have 10,125 divided by 125. So the top should be just 81, right? And then the bottom we have, if we get rid of 20 and 20, we should get a 10 because it's 1000 divided by 100. So the bottom is 10. When we get to this point, then we want to get the denominator equal to 1. Then we will move the decimal here to get it a 1. So do the same on top, right? So that would give me 8.1 over 1. So that's why the answer would be 8.1, right? I was trying to match the similar step that we did for the last questions. I think last semester we tried to get them to have the same denominator. So if you get them to the same denominator, it would be at the point of 125 over 1000 divided by 125 over 100. So we try to get them to have the same denominator. Then what is the lowest common denominator? 1000. LCD is 1000. At this point, you can multiply the second fraction with what both top and bottom. 10, or you can just add a 0 at the end, which is also acceptable. If you use different color, I can see that. And when you get to this point, then you can divide top by top, bottom divided by bottom. That would be 1,125 divided by 1,250. And the bottom would be 1,000 divided by 1,000, right? 1,000 divided by 1,000 automatically will give me 1. Yeah, I think this is better. It's less confusing than the other one. This one, if I do 10,125 divided by 1250, then I would get an 8.1. Is it okay? I think this is probably less confusing, so I would recommend doing the common denominator actually. So you can pick up like step 3 from here. But both would be acceptable. Are we okay? We haven't done the scientific notation, right? Okay, the next one is scientific notation. How does scientific notation work? How does scientific notation look like? It's something times 10 to some power. What do I put here? There's a restriction for this number. It has to be between what and what. There is a number here, and this number need to be a one-digit number, meaning it should be between what and what. 1 and, can it be 10? No, it need to be smaller than 10, right? A need to be between 1, can be 1, but need to be smaller than 10. So it could be 9.99999, but not 10. You can have questions ask you to convert to scientific notation. Let's do 58000, and the second one would be 0.001057. Always, I want you to rewrite the question first, right? Don't do stuff on the question so I can see what's the original questions. How do I change them to scientific notation? I need to move the decimal between 5 and 8. Why is it between 5 and 8? I need to make that a one-digit number, right? So the decimal is here, so I'm moving this direction how many times? 4 times. So make sure you show me the arrow so I know where is the decimal places coming from. So this would be 5.8 times 10 to what power? Positive or negative? Okay, we don't have an agreement here. So is this a big or small number? Big number, so it should be a positive. What is 10 to the 4th? 10 to the 4 is 10 to the 4 is 10 to the 4 is what? You should know what 10 to the 4 is. It means you have 4 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Mean this is 10,000. If you use 5.8 times 10,000, it should get back to the original questions, okay? So you should be able to check it. But in general, if you started with a big number mean bigger than 1, okay? Then your exponent should be positive. This is the step I'm looking for, okay? I'm just trying to explain to you what's going on here. All right, so similar here, what do I do? The decimal to where? Between 5 and 7? Okay, if I move it to 5 and 7, what number is this? 105.7, is that what I want? No, so it needs to be a one-digit number, so it should be between 1 and 0. So this is going to be 1, 2, 3 here. Show me the arrow where you're moving from. This will become a number of what? 1.057 times 10 to the negative 3, okay? The way we remember it is, this is a tiny number, right? Small number means smaller than 1. And then the exponents is going to be, if you started with a small number, then the exponents will be negative. And by small, I mean less than 1, okay? But you can check also, right? If you want to check, you are multiplying 1.057. What is 10 raised to negative 3? What decimal number is that? How many decimal places? 3 decimal places. So it's going to be 0, 0. How many 0? 3 0? Don't worry. What does 10 to the negative 3 mean? 1 over 10 to the third power, right? Meaning 1 over how many zeros? 3 0, okay? If you write that as a decimal number, it would be what? 0.001. Okay, 3 decimal places, right? -3 exponents mean 3 decimal places. Are we okay? You guys need to review this. Little bit worried. Okay, if you multiply these two numbers, it should get back to the original number, okay? All right, so this is converting to scientific notation. Again, just this part is the step I'm looking for. This part just explaining to you what's going on. But then we also have the other type of questions, which is converted back to standard number, meaning no scientific notation, right? No exponent. One of them can be 1.25 times 10 to the -2. And the second question will be 7.19 times 10 to the 4. Just looking at this, I know this is going to be a big or small number. Small because negative exponents. This is going to be big. Okay. And how do I do the first one? Is 1.25. So I'm going to move the decimal to the left to make it smaller, right? How many times? 2 times. So the decimal point with the arrow here, I put a 0 here. So the answer is 0.0125. Are we okay? And this is like 0.01, right? If you multiply them together, you should get that. How about the second one? 7.19. Need to move to the right. How many times? 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. So here, so don't leave it as answer, okay? I don't know where's your decimal point. There's so many of them. So you need to write that one more time. Your answer is 71900. Is it okay? All right. Question for this. There are some questions ask you to change the decimal to fraction. Are we good with those? Yes or no? You are. Let's test it. I'm changing them to fractions. First one. What's on top? 118. At the bottom, how many zeros? You say 4, but you sound so unsure. 1, 2, 3, 4. Is it right? This is your 10, 100,000, 10,000, right? So 10,000 sounds correct. 4 decimal places mean 4 0 here. That's how I remember it. And can I leave this as my final answer? No. This can be reduced by 2, okay? So divide by 2, what do we get? 118 divided by 2 is 59 over 10,000 divided by 2 is 5,000. Final answer? Probably. It's 59. I think it's a prime number. Any question for that? Okay, how about the second one? If I write it as fractions, we have 4 and 507 on top. At the bottom, we have something with 30, right? Which is 1,000. Can this be my final answer? Yep. So don't put that as an improper fraction, okay? Just put it as a mixed fraction. That's more proper than improper fractions. Okay, that would be the end of decimal number.